Welcome to Big in Biz with DiViz. I'm Craig DiVizzio. Today I talked to Ginger Kerrick Davis, and we talked about the firsts that she has encountered in her career and her suggestion that she wasn't ready for any of her firsts, but she said, get past the fear and just do it. She also talked a lot about the balancing act of being a manager, delivering management and leadership that people really need, and loving your people along the way. And that connection with people is so important. I hope you enjoy the show. Tons of great leadership tips from Ginger Kerrick Davis. Stay tuned. Welcome to another edition of Big in Biz with DiViz. I'm Craig DiVizzio, president of DiVizzio International, and my guest today is Ginger Kerrick Davis. What do I want to say about this wonderful, wonderful friend of mine? Have you ever met anyone, and after you have heard all that they've accomplished in their life, the only thing you can say is, wow? And have you also ever met somebody, and when you interacted with them, they were just so nice? The only thing you could say was, wow, they're really nice. With Ginger, I said wow twice. That's what I think about her. She is one of my best friends. She is one of the most respected and liked managers that I have ever dealt with, and I've dealt with thousands of them. I want to give a little bit about her background. First, Ginger Kerrick Davis is the Deputy Director of Johnson Space Center's Exploration, Integration, and Science Directorate. Ginger was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, and graduated from Texas Tech University with a bachelor and master's degrees in physics. Ginger began working for NASA in 1991 and has served in numerous roles throughout her career: materials research engineer, astronaut and flight controller instructor, Russian training integration instructor, and these are the ones that I love because this is breaking ground here. The first non-astronaut Capcom flight director, assistant director for the International Space Station for the Flight Operations Directorate, and chief of the Flight Integration Division. In 2016, she was inducted into the Texas Women's Hall of Fame by Governor Abbott. In 2019, she was appointed by Governor Abbott to serve on the Texas Tech University System Board of Regents. In her personal time, she's an avid runner, decorates cakes, and supports a number of Houston area dog rescues. And I got to go back to that decorates cakes thing. How many times have I been to Johnson Space Center for the last 11 years, and I have not gotten one cake decorated for me? I haven't even got a cupcake decorated for me. What is up with that, Ginger? Ginger,
That is
welcome.
obviously a leadership failure on my part.
Ginger, welcome to the show. It's so good to have you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for all the kind words. It's great to be here and great to see you.
Yeah, I wanted, we're going to be talking about leadership today, and you certainly have had a lot of career transitions, a lot of firsts. They, in some ways, when I read your bio, it's like it, in some ways, defines your career. Not only were you the first woman to do this and this and this, but it seems to me, having talked to you over the years, that whenever NASA wants to do something new, some brand new initiative, your name comes up. And so I'm just wondering, do you just love those big challenges? Or are you just in the right place at the right time? Tell me a little bit about your career and how you just happen to manage into all these firsts.
It is yes and yes. I happen to be at the right place at the right time. But I also make it known that I love NASA. I love this program, and I am willing to do whatever it takes to support this program. And there have been things that have popped up where there's a need that's identified, or I will identify a need and you just have to have the courage to take on that new job. At no point in time was I ever ready for any job that I've ever taken. I have always gone into it knowing full well where my deficiencies lie, and then embracing those and doing something about that. So I think people recognize there's nothing they can't throw at me, not because I am all knowing and all capable, but because I know what I'm capable of, and I know who knows what I need to know, and I will go make friends and form a team and get them to help me accomplish the objectives that have been given to me.
It appears to me that you're evidently very good at that, forming a team and knowing yourself well. How did that come about? Is it that you've always been blessed with people who give you a lot of very useful feedback on what you're good at and what you're not? Do you do a lot of self-reflection? What is your leadership, I'd say, kind of evaluation of yourself as you go? I mean, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I think you just have to be honest with yourself. A lot of times people will try to convince themselves that they are one thing or another thing. But I believe that you need to have a certain degree of emotional intelligence, both about yourself and about others. And so I pride myself on knowing myself well, where my strengths are. You are right. Team building is my strength. Um, I recognize that, and I utilize that skill in a lot of the new jobs I take on. But there's other areas where I am not that strong. Perhaps I am not as patient as sometimes, because I tend to look at a problem, see the solution, but if I were to go implement that solution, I'm not leading. I need to get people on board, educate them, listen to their ideas, and then help them maybe guide me in a different direction that I hadn't thought of before.
You know,
Um,
that the concept that you just introduced is an interesting one to me. The concept of, I know my areas of deficiency, and I will find people. I will, in some ways, if we can characterize that, ask for help in those
yeah,
areas. That is something that I have found a lot of. Doesn't even have to be people in leadership. It can be individual contributors. They are really reluctant to do. Because in some ways, if I am saying I need help with something, then am I also admitting I may be in some ways incompetent to do my job? Was I not hired to be the be all and of end all of everything? You've got to have bumped into people on your team who are reluctant to ask for that help that you aren't reluctant to. How do you handle that?
So, I tell people, go look up the definition of incompetence. I'm glad you asked that, because this is one of my pet
Oh,
peeves.
great, good, good. Let's talk about, because
So,
people struggle with it.
yeah. So if you look up the definition of incompetence, it's really, demonstrating the inability to do something successfully. And so if you have somebody that knows that they are weak in an area and choose not to go seek out that information, by definition, they're going to be coming to you with a solution that doesn't include that, and they are not going to be able to successfully meet the objective. So by not reaching out, yes, you are demonstrating your incompetence, your inability to successfully complete what I just asked you. But if you show me the ability that you are self-aware enough to know that this is a weakness, and not only self-aware, you could be self-aware and say, I don't know how to do that. I can't do that. Okay, incompetent. But hey, boss, I am self-aware enough to know that I don't have experience in this area. I'm going to go bring in, Bobby to the team, and he's going to help, because I think he'll add value to my team, and I'm going to go meet your objective, competence. And so by actually reaching out, you have demonstrated competence.
I love the fact that you're asking them to go seek out the definition of that. One of the words, no, I love it, because it's like, let's really get to the root of what we're talking about here, because oftentimes people see a word or hear a word, and their take on that word, their interpretation of it, is really different than what the word conveys. I love the word ignorant. Only, and I'm not going to go anywhere else with that, other than to say, ignorant just means a lack of information in an area. So when somebody says, "Boy, you're ignorant," well, I am in certain areas. I readily admit that. It's not a problem for me. But a lot of people, if you say, like, you're ignorant in this area, it's almost like they take offense that they can't get past the word to get to really creating some type of solution to whatever the issue is.
Yeah, and that comes into play too. You mentioned feedback, whether or not I receive feedback. One of the best classes, no, not one, the best class I have ever had in my career was performance enhancing feedback. And what you just mentioned there, they associate something with a word. One of the skills that you taught in that class was, how do I provide feedback in such a way that it will enhance the performance of the individual? Part of that is making sure you have a common understanding of the information being exchanged. If somebody says something and the other person is offended, that is how it impacted them. When I say it, I have a certain intent.
Right.
So you have this intent and the impact. And if there's a disagreement or somebody hates each other, it's because these two are mismatched. And so that you need to keep asking questions like, what do you mean by that? What do you say by that? And eventually the intent and the impact can match. And then that's when the feedback you're giving is performance enhancing.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Thank you for the kudos on the class. I love that. I love that class. I love that.
I use it every day. I use it with my hubby. I use it with my
I'm going to need a kickback then.
Yeah, you are.
One more. Let's stay with the feedback issue, because certainly with the projects that you're managing and the teams that you're handling, I know that you are encouraging them to give each other feedback, that it is not just the feedback that I as the leader have about your performance, but listen, you guys can help each other out with your feedback. What I find, especially in locations where everybody is really good at what they do, people will say to me, "Craig, but this guy is an expert on that." Yes, I do think that I have something that would benefit them that I could share with them, but who am I to say it to them? They're the expert. They're so smart. I feel like I can't, I would be insulting them. Who am I to say something to them when they know more about that topic? I know you encourage people to talk to each other, but how do you handle that pushback of, hey, that's not my job, that's your job, and what if they get insulted? Now, I don't want to do that, and who am I to say it to them?
Yeah, I encourage people, yes, we all have different areas of expertise, but we also all have blind spots. We are human. And you can be the expert in one particular thing, and then all of a sudden one day somebody brings a proposal for you to use that thing in a different way. You are now no longer the expert. So there are other people. You want people to invite opinions in to take a look at it from a different perspective. There's always something to be gained by looking at things from a different perspective. That's how you grow.
Boy,
for example,
you got to be a strong person to do that. To what you just said, to invite in the real honest feedback. That really takes a strong person, doesn't it?
It takes a strong person. It takes a person that is not that recognizes they don't know everything, which is hard for people to do because you're hired into a position where you're the expert, you know everything. And if I show that I don't know everything, maybe now I'm not going to be the recognized expert. No, you're going to be recognized as the person that has this in-depth expertise who always wants to continue to grow that expertise. The world changes, technology in particular. So you can't have one person locked in all of the time that is not soliciting inputs from other people. Diversity of thought, diversity of experience. We have interns that show up here, and that's the first thing I tell them. I want you to question everything that you see here. And because you're going to be looking at this with fresh eyes, and you might discover, you might ask somebody, well, why do we do it that way? Oh, I don't know. Have you ever thought about doing it this way? I learned this new skill in school. And we change our processes because of that. So I think the more you demonstrate that, that it is a value, it is something you value, the more comfortable your employees will be behaving in that way.
I know that you spend a lot of effort and time developing relationships with people. How has the last year or so impacted that? This leading virtually is almost like a completely new animal for lots of people, and a lot of teams are struggling. A lot of leaders are struggling to manage those teams through this virtual process. Have you scheduled meetings every so often? I mean, how are you handling that?
Yeah, I handle it with a mixture of approaches. Sometimes I will see, an employee will send an email about a technical thing that they are working, and then I will hit them up. We use Teams, so I will hit them up on Teams. Hey, do you have a sec? And I'll just, hey, I'm really interested in what you just did. That was amazing. How are you able to accomplish that? So I'll do these work-related drop-ins. But then I'll be on a Teams meeting and I will see one of my employees' faces not, there's something wrong. And so after the meeting, hey, do you got a sec? And how's it going? And then you'll hear, oh my gosh, my mother got COVID, or I wasn't able to travel for my grandfather's funeral. And you have to be, again, it's all about the emotional intelligence. You have to be able to read your employees and know them well enough so that when you do that, it means something to them, that you can tell that in their face. And then they go off and they tell boss checked in on me today. She's really super supportive. That problem you told me about, you should go to her. I'm sure she'll listen to you. And then you create this environment where you are the empathetic leader. And it won't work if you're fake. So I genuinely do care about my people. But I've tried to come up with new ways. We host meetings, a virtual luncheon. We had virtual happy hours after work where people would log on.
I, I need to be invited
Like,
to a couple of those.
Yes. Yeah, so you just have to get creative.
I can remember, Ginger, when one of the beautiful things for the listeners that don't know, when the class that Ginger referenced earlier, performance enhancing feedback, that was in the leadership development program at Johnson Space Center. So I got all the leaders, the people at the top of their organizations going through the class. And whenever I recognized that somebody was a leader of an area, I wanted my tour of that area. And so I've gotten to tour the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory. I've seen the lunar display. And when you were the flight director, you were cordially invited me to tour Mission Control. And I still have that picture up on my website. What I remember most distinctly was as we were walking around that building, the way people talked to you and the way people addressed you was out of consummate respect, but it wasn't respect of a leader who I'm not really familiar with. It was respect for somebody who would want to go have some drinks with, somebody that you felt was really in touch. That is a balance of being the leader that has to make tough decisions and has to deliver tough messages from time to time, and yet people are just love who you are as a person, making that. How did you ever? Is that just natural for you? Did you read it in a book that this is the way to do this well? You've just really got that down as much as anybody that I know.
No, it is natural for me. I'll give you an example. When I was growing up in elementary school, and my mom would say, "Hey, you can invite your friends over for a birthday party." And there was one time I had like 85 friends, and she's like, "Oh my gosh! All right, we'll rent the skating rink." And then we moved houses, and I made new friends in a new school. And the next birthday, I had like 120 friends. But I enjoy getting to talk. People are interesting. People I always have something to learn from somebody, and people are going through struggles that are unimaginable sometimes. And They don't always feel comfortable reaching out. And I have always had people available to me to help me. I had a great family. I had, when my dad died when I was little, I had great male mentors that stepped in. And it's too hard to go through this life alone. And
Yeah. Hmm.
even though I have a job to do and people to lead here for a specific job function, at the end of the day, they go home and they are real people with real world problems. And if there's anything I can do to help them feel better about themselves and still help them become a better employee, or just help them be better themselves, I am genuinely interested in that. So it is something that I've always had. And no, I haven't read any books on that.
What's one thing that as you've gone through your career that has been the biggest challenge for you of leadership? I know there's a lot of young leaders listening to this wanting to learn from those who have gone before and have been successful, and sometimes I think they feel like I'm probably the only person in the world who's struggling with this. What are some of the things that you struggled with, and maybe one thing you struggled with, and how you addressed that issue?
So one of the biggest struggles I had, as a flight director, you are leading a very discrete mission where everybody is all in. You don't really have to. You're leading a mission and or function. Um, but when you move up and you start leading people or enterprises, that is a totally different skill set. And so I had to go from being the person that gets things done to being the person that develops people and removes obstacles so that my people can get things done.
Mm.
And it's a mental shift. So I reached out to some coaches. So I got some executive coaching. I read some articles and the Harvard Business Review articles, and there was one that resonated with me. And I'm trying to remember the name of the article, but it was about seven seven seismic shifts that you had to make. That's what it was. And I thought, oh my gosh, okay, I have made 4 of these seismic shifts, but apparently there are more left.
Dag on it.
So yes, so that helped me get a different view of the world. I reached out to some leadership books. What Got You Here Won't Get You There is an excellent book by Goldsmith, and I've read that several times as I transition jobs, because it is true, you got to this point for a reason, but if you're going to be successful here and prepare yourself well for the next point, there's a whole nother set of skills that you need to develop. So basically, again, it goes back to I can assess a situation, I can know where my weaknesses are, and then craft a plan to go and address those as best I can.
As you see new generations coming into leadership, and of course each generation brings with them good stuff and may possibly some baggage. What is there a trend that you're seeing with young leaders now, that if you were to give them advice and say, one thing that I think in your generation you really need to spend some time developing, it's this? Or have you not seen any differences over the years?
No, I have seen differences.
Okay.
It's a mix between impatience and a degree of entitlement. That I have entered the workforce. I'm going to check off some boxes and then I should get promoted. Instead of let's roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty, become an expert in a particular field. And then look at opportunities. So I have to coach some of my young leaders on patience, on the importance of developing a network. I think in today's society where people are on their phones or they're texting people or, hitting people up on social media, and you don't have that face-to-face interaction or even so much as a phone call interaction, they lose the ability to network. And because part of networking is establishing a relationship with somebody where they can see your passion. I can come to you and I say, hey, I really need you to do this for me, Craig, rather than, hey, Craig, what are you doing? Okay. So I need to develop. I would encourage young leaders not to lose that skill. It got you and I to where we are today. And while there are different ways of doing things today, that is an innate, human to human interaction is something that's not going to go away.
Yeah,
And I think it'll help them.
yeah, we've gotten further away from actually kind of touching lives. We're like glancing it off each other, but we're not really touching each other.
Yeah, take time to get to know each other.
Yeah, it's clear when you talked about the passion that people have. It's clear to me every time I talk to you the passion that you have for what you do and for leadership. Is that something? What's been the biggest benefit to you over the years of leadership? Was there anything that you said, I kind of believe, I think I got an idea of what leadership's about, and it's going to be tough in these areas and maybe rewarding in these areas. But I was surprised in that something that was a real positive, more so than I even expected, was, what would that be for you?
It would be the number of lives that I have impacted. I give a lot of talks, for example, to high school students, college students. And there was one day where it really hit home to me. I was just walking down the hall here at NASA, and I hear, Miss Kerrick, Miss Kerrick. And I turn around and I look at this individual, and I'm vaguely familiar, but I can't tell. And he said, I've been looking for you. I've gone by your office several times. I just wanted to say thank you. You are the reason I'm here. And then I started crying, and I'm like, oh my God, there's no crying in human spaceflight. But the reality was I had talked to this young man at a university 8 years before, and he had gone through some struggles in his life and veered off track and remembered a talk that I had given. And decided that he was going to overcome those obstacles and come to work at NASA. So I have had many examples of those. I have a drawer full. Whenever I have a bad day, I open up this drawer and I've got all these thank you notes
that's
in
great.
here.
That's great.
So that was the part that was the most surprising, but it fuels me to continue to do more and continue to advise people and coach people and mentor people, because I want to see how many more lives I can touch. I would not be where I was today had it not been for my mentors, and I'd probably have to mentor 20,000 people to pay those people back
Right.
for what they did for me.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful story. Yeah, I would dare say that there are people who look at your career and say, well, she probably just had it easy the whole time.
Oh, God, no.
And you and I both know that that's not the case. You talk about really enjoying leadership, and so many people that I talk to in my leadership classes, they're just struggling with leadership. So as my last question to you, many leaders would enjoy leadership more if they would what? What do you think is the missing component for a lot of people where it's like a burden on them to be in leadership as opposed to seeing it as a privilege and an honor to be in leadership?
Yeah, I have coached quite a few people through that. And sometimes, Craig, I'll be perfectly honest, some people we put in leadership positions where you have to lead people, it's not their skill set. And they would rather be technical leaders. So helping people identify, is it the problem that your passion lies with leading technical projects, or are you just frustrated with this because you don't know how to lead people? So I would tell people, answer that question for yourself and be honest. And it's okay. Not everybody has to be a manager or a leader of people. But if you genuinely want to be one and you just don't know how, again, seek out help. But your focus can be, yeah, it's difficult. I've got all these employees coming in with all their problems, and oh my gosh, I didn't know this is what leadership was.
Right.
But you can tie it to a technical. If I don't help this employee get over this hump, I'm never going to get the technical solution. So if that's what motivates you, look at it that way. But you can also look at it the way I look at it. How can I help this person lead a better life so that they can address how. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I don't have those degrees, but I can always offer an ear, and if there's something I can do as a leader to help them, and a lot of times there is, and just watching them walk away with a smile on their face, knowing that their boss has their back, that's the satisfying part for me. So you have to figure out what motivates you at the end of the day, and go find help that can guide you, and help you guide your employees down the right path.
Yeah, well, you certainly have found a good fit for yourself in terms of your passion, and because it aligns so much with what I see leadership to be. You're really there. You work for your people. They don't work for you. Your job is to help them be successful, and sometimes that falls outside the boundaries of just work. It's like, hey, we're just people here trying to get along, and maybe you've got a personal issue I'd be happy to listen to if you want to, and maybe I don't have the answer, but that reaching out to people, there's a saying that says reaching I'm going to get it wrong now. Reaching is the only giving that can touch. So when you're reaching out, and so you certainly have done that. I think I really wish that there were more people who had an idea and a handle on leadership the way that you do. You do it beautifully. Your career has suggested that, and I wish we had more time, because I'd love to ask you a whole lot more questions. I'm going to have you back, and when I have you back, I better have a decorated cupcake or a cake.
Okay. Oh, I got that. Yeah, I got you next time.
Ginger, it has been a real pleasure having you on your show. Any final words, any final tip that you have for young leaders?
Just to don't be afraid of taking on new challenges. There's some people that get in their comfort zone, and I'm a good leader here, but oh gosh, I could never do that. Don't be afraid to try something new. I have never been prepared for any leadership job that I have been given, and I've always been afraid. But I have been so happy that I've taken on each one, and each one has prepared me for the next one. And so somewhere along the line, I lost the fear. So lose the fear earlier than I did, and go out and just embrace it. Embrace what you know, embrace what you don't know. Find people that help you fill the gaps, and keep learning. A leader should never stop learning. We don't all have this figured out yet.
I love it. Lose the fear and keep learning, and ask for help when you need it. Ginger, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so good to see you, and congrats on your show.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being a guest on one of my first shows. That's it for another edition of Big in Biz with DiViz. I'm Craig DiVizzio. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay cool, have good thoughts. See ya.